Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the casual stream with your boy, Base the Kid. Later than usual on a different day than usual, but I felt it was only right. I jumped on, had a little chat with the people, see what's happening. Tuesday was always going to be a bit hit and miss, and unfortunately for some of you, depending on who actually likes watching casual streams, I was at a European premiere on Tuesday watching Marvel's Thunderbolts, and yes, it was a very good experience. First premiere I've been to in years. Shout out to my boy Axel Blake if he's watching. Axel hooked me up, got me a content creators pass to get in. Saw the entire cast. Uh, Hannah John Kamen springs to mind. Her and Wyatt Russell. I literally walked past them to get in. Um, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Kevin Feige as well. The head honcho over there at Marvel Studios. So yeah, it was a great time. But that meant that the casual stream had to get pushed back. Now I wasn't initially going to do it yesterday, but I felt rather than do two this week, because I got a surprise for you guys. I'm gonna tell you in a little bit. I figured let me do it tonight, because the press conference night is always going to be the time when you really get to sort of dissect how people are going to be acting and what's kind of going to be going on. So I decided to do it today, and I'm a couple hours later than I normally would, but again, I needed a bit of chill time. I've literally just got back into work last couple days, like already brains being taxed. I'm like, okay, maybe another holiday is due, but we're gonna stay consistent and we are gonna stay ready. We're gonna stay active. So we're gonna get into all of that stuff very, very shortly. I'm gonna jump in the chat very quickly to see who's here, say what's up to the people. But before, let me make a couple of announcements. I'm gonna make some announcements now, then I'm going to make announcements at the end of the stream as well, just for the people who come in a little bit later. So next week, actually no, let's start from this week. So basis picks gonna be out tomorrow as normal. However, we're gonna do something a little bit different. I'm actually going to be giving the pick for main event first. I know some people is like, oh, like they just want to get to the good stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do main event, and then I'm going to do the rest of the fights in my order of interest rather than the actual order that they stack up on the cards. So that's what we're going to do first. There will be a watch along on Saturday. I think me and every other person in the world that watches boxing has any interest is going to be doing the watch along. I know that I believe October Red's going to be doing hers, so you guys make sure you go over and shout her out and go watch hers, or at least flip between the two. That's all good. There's going to be the live watch along from Undefeated Podcast. I would have done that one, but I got given very last minute notice on that. So yeah, I won't be there with the guys, but I'll be there in spirit. I know Ade's going to be doing his one, and obviously we all expected Ade to be hosting, so make sure that you go and show love to Ade, G-Man as well, who will be there. I'm pretty sure Danny Glover for Fight Fan TV Live will also be doing a watch along. So if you are part of my community, then you are pretty much a part of the majority of those communities, because those are the people that I rock with. Those are the people that I will give my co-signs to. So make sure that you go join them. I'm pretty sure Ring IQ will also have one. Boxing Beats and Rams will probably have one. Um, yeah. So any of the trusted channels, yeah, you go. Even if you're not watching mine, as long as you're watching one of the trusted channels, that's all. That's all good. That's all good. Um, Gonna have a guest on next week, and I'll talk to you guys about that in a moment. But I just want to greet anyone who's jumped in the chat early. Um, October's in the shout out to October. Evening base on the train, so reception is poor. Would love to know your thoughts on the sparring kiss and tell. All right, we'll get into that because that's very interesting. Man like Clyde Gordon as well. Shout out to you. Uh, I see Clyde just jumped in as well. Big ups, big ups. Okay, Andrew, shout out, man. Says I have bets on CBS and Benn for the win. Definitely lost my money. Interesting. Clyde, you need to watch Sinners. I've watched it. I watched that last week. So yes, I'm very, very aware of that one. Oh, the notorious, the infamous Carme in the building. Shout out to you. I'm on time today. Yes, you are, but you're always on time whenever you show up. So that's not even a prerequisite. Thank you very much for being here, as always, especially while working. Shout out to man like James as well in the building. Salute to you, Skyliner, the editor. Big up, says Team Eubank all the way. I think that's the growing sentiment at this point in time. And then man like Tony, pugilist boy in the building as well. Shout out to you, Tony. Um, I thought it was a trusted channel. Yeah, if it's a channel I trust, I don't mind if you get the views instead of me, as long as it's someone that you know, not one of the outsiders, and we know who they are. Skyliner, the editor, and he echoes my sentiments. Great interview with Uncle Frank. It was very candid. I'm surprised the fact that for a 15-minute interview you managed to get so much in. Obviously, I know it was a little bit longer than that generally, but yes. But we all know October's at getting what she wants to get out of most situations. So big ups to her and the blonde dreads. Um, Aaron Daly in the building as well. Shout out, blessings to you, blessings to you. Um, He says, salute October Red, best interview around. Yep, I will co sign that. Cool. Okay. Right, so another couple quick announcements before we kind of get into what's going on. Shout out to Veritas Ad Astra as well. Big ups to you, big ups to you. Love every time. Thank you for being here. Right, so next week we will have obviously we will have a casual stream on Tuesday as normal, regular time. So it'll be around sort of that 7:30, 8 o'clock-ish mark on the Tuesday. But on Wednesday, I will have a special guest on the channel. It will be, I guess, a bit of a casual stream meets base talks. I'm going to try and do it live. I'm hoping that the platform I'm using will allow them to be able to use their phone. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So hope so. Anyway, it's a female boxer that I've had my eye on for the last 2 and a bit years. A young up and coming female boxer, only 20 years old, extremely talented, vicious in the ring, got knockout power as well. And yeah, just sort of making their way up in the division. So I'm gonna be putting all of that out sort of towards the end of the show. But yeah, just so you guys know, and that will be running roughly around about 9:30. So similar-ish times to now, but that'll be on Wednesday next week. So we'll do 2 streams, plus we'll get some regular other content out on the channel as well. I want to try and get back to doing episodes and being unfiltered with my thoughts on the good and the bad that goes on a daily basis. Right, now I know that I'm not sure if this was to do with the sparring that I'm supposed to be having or the sparring stories, but yeah, we're going to get to that. Shout out to Despect87, evening, undefeated family, like and share the thing, 100%. Appreciate that. Right, so yes, first things first. So we talk about this fight week, but before we get to that, obviously, as October has jumped in the chat and has requested, let's talk about Nigel Benn, Mr. Benn, as senior would call him. He was extremely candid in his assessments of the sparring between Conor and Bruno Soros and Denzel Bentley and William Skull. Now, how much of it was him sort of hyping his son and being a bit, maybe not so much telling, sort of telling grand tales, but just embellishing maybe. to be honest, knowing now, look, I don't know Nigel Benn personally, but he's not really you don't really get that grandiose type feeling from him when he talks. Some if it was senior, okay, maybe you say okay, maybe seniors he's just he's hyping his son a bit, but Nigel seemed genuinely excited to talk about that sparring. The way how he told to Tony, no Tony, that's mine. Don't talk about that. Let me talk about the sparring. Like he was really really giddy to, and look at this point in time they've got to draw on any positives, any small percentages of victory they feel they can get, because Chris Eubank at the moment has definitely got the he's got the crowd on his side. He's got the public. For probably the first time in his career, the public are definitely on sort of Team Eubank Junior. He's getting love and adulation and plaudits, and Connor is obviously having to play a role or be different to, I guess, maybe what he wants to be, because you can tell Connor is the kind of guy that just wants to be loved. But at this point in time, he understands that the narrative is the narrative, and he's just got to do what he's got to do, and he can't sort of let that other energy sort of penetrate and filtrate. So when we hear about the sparring, they said, oh, he specifically said he did good with Denzel. Now, I think specifically to that, the wording is because obviously maybe because they're closer to Denzel, they see Denzel fairly often. I remember there was a show when who was it? It was when there was a boxing show at York Hall. I can't remember who done it, but it was the Sims brothers. It was Charlie Sims. I can't remember what the actual promotion's called, but they had a lot of matching fights. I know Denzel Bentley was one of the hosts that night, and obviously so Connor was there, so clearly that's where the link up has come from. And you would think you don't want to say too much about what happened between those two, but I would assume that with Denzel was he was praising him, saying look, he's good, like the size, I thought the size would be an issue for him, and the size wasn't. He gave me some good rounds and he held his own. When they say they held their own, that usually means that you hit them with some good shots and they stayed in there. So that's what we can say about him. Bruno Saras, he said we didn't hear too much about the rounds that he did with Saras, but then it's like, oh, he was going in there and doing well against Saras as well. Guy just knocked out Munguia up at light heavyweight. Now, one thing to maintain is Bruno Saras is not a big puncher, regardless of what happened to Jaime Munguia. That was one of those lightning in a bottle type situations. So we're going to take that one with a pinch of salt. Also, we must take with a little bit of pinch of salt when they're talking about the William Skull. Now, this one's interesting because we don't know when exactly this particular training took place. Was this last week? Was this week before? Was this like 3 weeks ago? But he basically said that William Skull was, quote unquote, he was pretty much having his way for like the first 3-4 rounds. But then from like rounds like 4, 5, 6, Connor starts to turn it up, and they're supposed to be doing 10 rounds in there, but William started to maybe either feel the pressure or feel a bit uncomfortable from round like maybe 6, 7 onwards. And when it got to the end of round, was it the end of round 8? He said, yeah, he goes, no, we want to finish the sparring. So basically, they didn't have the last 3 rounds of sparring. I've heard stories like this before. Now, I'm not going to take a huge amount out of it, but I have also heard a rumor that I don't know who caused this, so it could have actually been Connor, but I did hear a rumor that William Skull was actually hurt pretty badly in sparring recently. I heard that he'd been knocked out in sparring years ago, but I heard that recently it also been. So I don't know the exact timeline. I'd have to go back to the sources and find out. But if that is the case, so then that's 2 things. So number 1, it means that maybe Connor has grown into this strength. He's had about a year and a half to grow into this 156, 157, 158 frame, whatever he's going to be battling with. Um, I'm pretty sure he's put a lot of additional and functional muscle on to sort of be able to carry that weight. And he's obviously been walking around and training in and around that weight for the last year and a bit. So it would make sense that okay, maybe he is a bit stronger now than he was before. Um, make of that what you will. But it also tells us that if William Skull was getting beat up in sparring, especially this close to his fight date, and he decided to forego extra rounds, that either means he's trying to preserve himself for the Canelo fight and maybe not get too banged up so that he can survive that fight and maybe try to take it on the cards, or it suggests that, like, if something that is levied at quite a few Cubans is they don't really like it in the doghouse when it gets tough. So that could very much indicate it might be the time to put a KO bet on this one, on the Canelo fight. That's what I would take from it. Now, should Nigel have disclosed so much sparring, especially with the names? That's a story for others. A lot of people say, look, what happens in sparring stays in sparring. Like, people get knocked out in sparring, it doesn't really mean much. People can, look great and do great in sparring, and then under the bright lights, that same person can beat them. So, sparring is supposed to stay in the gym, and it's a sacred thing. I will leave that up to you guys, because that's for you to decide. Personally, I don't usually care for sparring stories, but the reason this one for me was so interesting, number one, because obviously it's a former fighter that's bringing all of this to the table. It's not really something that gets spoken about in the UK. That's more of a US thing to maybe talk about sparring to discredit people. But it was only the fact that those two are fighting so close together. So I would assume that sparring did take place within the last 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks. And if that's the case, if you're deep in the heart of camp at that point, you should be fairly sharp. So if that is the case and you are getting handled like that, so close to your fight date by someone that's decidedly smaller than the opponent you're going to be getting in the ring with, that might be an issue. So then maybe we know that this is payday. So yeah, let's see what you guys in the chat is saying regarding that, and then we'll talk about the press conference afterwards. Okay, trilogy between Yard and Arthur has been poorly promoted. Very true. I think the female boxer you'll be covering is Amara Taylor. No, it's not. But she will. She may be on the next Femme Files. I do have to bring that back. I keep getting cussed by Danny Glover for not doing so. So check it out. Has anyone pulled fisheyes on the Dead Zone comments following joining the zone? Shout out to Ilukan. Well, no, but he's kind of already explained it himself. He said, look, at the time I thought that they weren't it, but I started to see that they were actually, making some interesting moves, and the time was right to jump over there. So look, no one's really gonna say it now. Like, to be honest, that would have been something you talk about maybe 3 months ago, 4 months ago, when the initial deal. But a lot of these so-called interviewers are not brave enough to ask the relevant questions. But Frank has basically addressed why he moved to the zone, and he addressed his previous comments, that he used to down the platform and didn't think it would be a good avenue. Skyline of Nigel Benn sounds delusional. Veritas, call me crazy, but I see Chris versus Benn going very similar, like Joshua versus Dubois. Just that Benn is not a known puncher as Dubois is, and the weight difference. Okay, so that's an interesting take. It's just all sentiment and rhetoric, no substance. Okay. He used God as a reference to the truth. And he said he's trying to get used to that. Like a next gen. Poor October, she's like this reception. he was saying Bentley was really light heavyweight. Well, no, you know what? I think with that, when he was saying, because he said, oh, they were sparring light heavyweight, I think that all of them are walking around at like 175, 180. So when he's sparring these guys, then he's not like he's not sparring middleweights. He's sparring guys when, you know, they're not in camp to lose weight right now. So I think that's what he meant, that they was bigger. Because when he said Bruno Soros and he said he was a light heavyweight, and then he said the same about William Skull, that means that they're obviously not at their fighting weights right about now. So they probably are walking around like 175, 180, 185, etc. That's what I took from it. I could be wrong, but you know. Come on, chat. Man like Philip Answer in the building. Shout out to you. Shout out to you. I think you're looking too much into the sparring. Plenty of fighters get bashed up sparring. It happens some days. Yeah, of course. And again, I would normally, it wouldn't be something that I would bring up or even refer to. However, October wanted to refer to the sparring, but more so, I'm looking at it from a point of view of he's getting these people at a point in time when they should be at their sharpest, or they should be working on things, and you shouldn't be. You're supposed to get bashed up in the first few weeks of sparring when you're trying to get your rhythm and your stamina and everything, and then you get sharper and sharper. Some people are notoriously bad sparrers. We've heard about this. But that being said, it's an interesting topic, because Benn, who is a much smaller guy, if he is causing certain guys of that size problems, it's worthy to, especially on fight week, and if they're going to use that to draw confidence from, it's worth talking about. October says she doesn't like it. She doesn't like the people talking about the sparring. What happened in sparring should stay there. I get that. Karma thinks it was a good point from earlier. Appreciate that. All right, shout out to Andrew. He says, yeah, regarding Frank, Eddie said pay-per-view is dead, remember? It happens, which is very true. Man like Joshua in the building. Can we stop taking sparring stories so serious? Like Al said, it's just practice. Well, yeah. Funny is Benn supposedly having no power is based on his last two fights at 154, but those guys were never stopped by anyone, so they got great chins. There's that. Plus, also, there's the two hardest jumps in boxing. In my opinion, I'm not going to say this is scientifically the fact, but 147 to 154, because not only are you putting on like the 8 pounds or the 7 pounds of additional weight, but you switch gloves. So you go from 8-ounce gloves to 10-ounce gloves. So you've got to get used to delivering your power in a slightly more padded glove than usual. And then I think from there, the second hardest one is light heavyweight to cruiser. So yeah, and there are others, but I think to me that's the hardest two to get a natural acclimatization to. And then from cruiser to heavyweight is just once you're big enough for cruiser, then it is what it is. But just because of that balance between being someone that's made 175 and then all of a sudden now you're fighting guys that are basically walking around sometimes 230 and dropping 30 pounds for a fight, that's a harder, that's a much harder gap to sort of get to. But yeah, but very true on that point. So the 147 to 154, now he might be used to the 10-ounce gloves. I want to see someone say, yeah, I got messed up in sparring. Well, people have said it. There's been quite a few people who said, yeah, I got my ass beat in sparring, but under the bright lights, it didn't happen the same way. So yeah, some people don't take it as serious as others, and some people just are notoriously bad at sparring. But when you get them in the ring, it's a whole different story. Benn is not a known banger. Hope he is not back on the scrambled eggs. Shout out to Alcoya. Star Fox WR45E in the building says big up to the base and chat. And Skyliner says what's up, twin. Okay, so this obviously is clearly in reference to October. So shout out to you too. Philip, is Conor Benn lacking confidence with this stuff about this 18-foot ring, the rehydration clause, and apparently getting Billy Joe to check Eubank's hand wraps. No, that's not confidence. That's about gaining whatever advantages you can get over your opponent. Um, because you know for a fact Billy Joe Saunders is going to wind up Chris Eubank Jr. hopefully and distract his mind. That's what you're hoping for. The 18-foot ring, it makes more sense. Conor Benn is a smaller guy, so if he's got less space to have to travel in between the ring, that benefits him. Means that he can conserve energy or he can get to his target quicker. It means that Eubank has to stand and engage more. Now that might be a bad thing for Benn, especially in the later rounds. But in the early rounds, it may mean that Chris burns through some of his energy reserves a bit quicker. And the rehydration clause thing, I mean, well, look, that's whether that's him, whether that's Eddie, that's obviously you're gaining an advantage. It's the same way that I'm pretty sure Chris's team had several advantages that they wanted. You know, I wouldn't put that down to confidence. That's just about trying to get trying to get what you want. In terms of it's like favorable terms, in my opinion. And Lucan Eddie plans to sue Eubank Senior due to apparently state. Yeah, I literally just watched that before I went live. But that was the funny thing is though, because it was Radio Raheem that said it, but it sounds very much like what he's referring to is the old Talksport interview from like 2 years ago, because that's when he said it. Because he said he mentioned on Talksport, so he didn't mention the Sunsport one that I just watched earlier with George Groves and that on it. He was referring to the Talksport one. He must have thought that was a new video, but that was the video from 2 years ago. So I bet when he sees it, he's gonna be like, "Oh, okay, fine." But yeah, I don't think any legal letters are gonna be going out, quite frankly. How much smaller is Benn to Eubank, or is it that Benn can lose far more weight? Smaller in what way? Do you mean like how much he weighs? Because I mean, weight divisions, they're probably about 1.5 divisions apart, realistically, at this point. But Benn is like 5'8", 5'7.5", 5'8", and Eubank is 5'11". Like he's like that much taller than me. But he's quite statuesque for 5'11" as well. So he's obviously got the height and the reach advantage, and this is naturally a bigger guy. They'll need to check Connor's gloves for egg weights. Speaking of hand wraps. Oh, Alex Bellotti is in the building. Shout out. Ade fresh home from Belmarsh. Yeah, Alex, you've been missed. Appreciate you. Veritas Adastra, Chris trying to box from the outside and try for the big single shots like Joshua, and Benn coming in, bouncing in and out of crouch with the head movement and combination punching like Dubois. Yeah, I mean that sounds like a good marry up of how that could be, especially in the 18 by 18 foot ring. Is he really getting Billy Joe to check his hand wraps? Well, he said it's alleged, but I think Ring Magazine broke that, and I think Conor was actually pissed that they mentioned that, because it came out in the press conference. But I think the Ring spoke about it before, because it must have had to get it verified that they would be allowed. But obviously he wanted that to be like something that they found out on the night to unsettle them. Now they've got time to prepare for that if that's the case. So if you wanted that to be, like this is going to be a bit of extra edge for me, now all of a sudden he doesn't get that moment, which is a bit bad on their behalf. Does anyone want to see Yard versus Arthur 3? No, I don't think anyone's been clamoring for it, but we've had worse trilogies. At least this one, maybe it does deserve a conclusive winner for the British scene. Do you think Eubank Senior is jealous of Junior? The stain he has, not involved, and essentially he sees Junior making money off his legacy and he's not receiving the benefits, the dollar. I actually, if you think about it, everyone and his mum and dad and grandparents wants Senior to be a part of the thing. So I think if it was a case of, oh, like he wanted to be there, but no one wanted him there, maybe you could say that. But Chris has actively tried to get him there. I know that people from the zone have reached out to him. I know that people from Sky have reached out to him to be there as well. And you've had Nigel constantly reaching out. So he's wanted there. He just doesn't want to be there. And maybe that's a way for him to be, because he likes to be in the limelight. We all know that he likes to have the spotlight and be his own boss. Maybe he feels like, well, if he goes there, he can't be his boss. He's got to be beholden to what someone else wants, which is obviously his son. Whereas if he can stay on the outside and say, look, I refuse this, I don't like this isn't for me, I won't be a part of it. Now everyone's keeping eyes on him to see what he's going to be doing, and he gets to run his own ship. So I think it's more about that, rather than him being jealous of Junior making money off his legacy. Although I do think that he is afraid that Junior may destroy his legacy by losing this fight. I think he's very worried about that more than anything else, is that he's battled hard to keep it to the fact that, Nigel Benn's never had a victory over him. He's never beat him in anything at his absolute best. All he could do is get a draw. But now his son, who he believes his son wants it more, and his son is a lot more dedicated than Junior, which is what he alluded to 2 years ago. I think he's worried about that. He's worried that Junior could destroy the family legacy. When it's in his hands, he knows that I can possibly steady this ship. I can right all wrongs, and I am Mr. Invincible. I am Mr. Eubank. But when you have to leave the legacy to the son, that's daunting, especially when you've been in control your entire life of what's been going on. So that's my opinion. With the senior situation, could it be that he just doesn't want his son to get all this limelight on his own, and if he wins, possibly eclipse him? A hint of jealousy? Maybe. Who knows? I don't think the Junior can do enough to really eclipse Senior at this point. I mean, that WBO got legitimized as a world championship. Bless me. He's got that the 2-weight world championship. He's got this Warriors Code thing. He's got this thing of, he's taken, he took the beatings. He then had he had all of the, the TV shows that he'd done. He had that, what was it, At Home with the Eubanks. He'd done the Gladiator show, and he's still just a very beloved figure. So I don't know if Junior can eclipse him in that sense, but Junior's definitely for the younger generation, not for him. Man said, quite frankly, I see what you did there, Base. Wasn't warranted. Man, like Star Fox every time. Benn also uses a fast power jab, and Chris' hands are usually down there. Oh, so we're talking strategies now. Good, I like it. Skyliner thinks that Senior is coming across as bitter and jealous of Junior. Could be a tinge of that. Why isn't Ade working for the zone on the night? Very strange. I mean, look, I'm not going to speculate. He hasn't told me the exact reason. I haven't spoken to him about it. But I've heard it's to do with maybe some comments he made regarding the TKO thing. And obviously, because TKO and Ring and Turkey are all kind of going to be in cahoots with each other, they decided that they didn't like that. And so what better way to quote unquote teach someone a lesson than to take them off of the biggest card of the year, especially in their home territory. Possibly that's kind of how I've heard it, but I can't confirm or deny any of the reasons. Again, I haven't been told that. I haven't spoken to Ade. He hasn't let anything through to me. He hasn't sent me any voice notes. So yeah. I don't think I've heard anyone use the word me in my life versus Eubank Senior during this build up. Oh, me more than Eubank Senior. Okay, I get it. I only just watched the Harlem Eubank fight and Chris walked him out. Oh yeah, which one though? Because He didn't walk him out in his very last one. He walked him out the one before that. Did Chris go against his word about being put down and injecting yourself, still being a drug cheat because he was training with Roy Jones, who tested positive against Richard? I don't know about all that because I get the sentiment, but there is an argument to say, well, maybe he wasn't aware of that. Not a lot of people, that wasn't like mainstream news over here, so maybe he didn't know, or maybe he will feel because Roy and his opponent, um, they both got tested positive for the exact same thing. Maybe he just felt, okay, cool. It's not like one person got an advantage over another in that exact same fight. They both of their tests came back with the same substance in it, and both ended up being cleared because it wasn't. Well, at least Roy never served a ban based on what was found. He said it was ingested from like a supplement or a pre-workout or whatever. So who knows? Shout out to Tommy. So, what is the most common ring size, and who do you think the 18-foot ring will benefit more? So, the most common one is usually 20 by 20, and then 22 by 22 is usually second. 18 by 18 are usually only in like small halls, where obviously you don't have as big a capacity, so they usually put them in there, and they usually only really used up to weights like 135, 140. It's very rare that you get like an 18 by 18 foot ring for weight classes above like 140. But it can happen. Like there's some heavyweights that fight in 18 by 18s, and they usually just both end up like in the center of the ring having to scrap because you can't really get away. The most uncommon ring size is 24 by 24, which is like Olympic standards. Those ones are really good for the movers, the people that like to be able to create space and time and distance. Eubank Senior, I am Christopher Livingston Eubank, and I am in. Okay. Betting the decision might be a sneaky good bet. Everyone is heavily leaning on the finish. When that happens, the fight goes a distance. I hear you. Star Fox says, Turkey giveth the bag, Turkey taketh the bag away. Shout out to Ahija Selassie. Chris hates drug cheats so much, was trained by Roy Jones and smiling and laughing and playing poker with Ryan Garcia. I mean, look, we all know that Chris is not above being, what's the word, being a hypocrite, or having hypocritical views, but I guess you can always say it's different. It's always different when it directly involves you. A lot of people say that, well, you feel like, oh, when you're in a situation or when you're not in a situation, you have you're the most forgiving and the most complex of your takes and everything. But as soon as like you become a part of that situation, all of a sudden you feel differently. So while I agree, it's very hypocritical, but I guess it is a bit different when you're in it. Christina, unfortunately deluded. That is, imaginative rules are real existing rules. Well, I mean, there are rules, but I think that the rules he just believes, he's saying, well, look, if this guy is an actual 147 pounder, then the rules should prevent him from being able to have a fight at 160 unless he's now going to be campaigning fully at that weight class. I think that's more what he's trying to say, but again, I could just be misinterpreting that. February on Channel 5. Oh yeah, the February one, yeah. I think he's fought since then. Shout out to a man like Northbank Brennan in the building. Salute to you. The staff says at least Roy never blamed eggs. Breaking news: Mike Coppin just saying that Usyk Dubois 2 is set for July 19th at Wembley. Yeah, we We heard that it was either going to be the 12th or the 19th. It's probably better that they make it the 19th than the 12th because there's already two very big events on that weekend, and you don't want to cannibalize your audience. Um, you've got Taylor Amanda 3 Netflix on the 11th, and then you've got the ring card on the 12th in the States as well. Yeah, you probably don't want to have too much spread out there. So yeah, makes sense. So that just means that the IBF will maybe allow the what's it called? Allow the step aside or the unification, and Chisora will just have to hold hopes. I'm pretty sure Eubank Senior has pretty good relationships with other boxers who failed tests before, like Fury, Hay, etc. Hypocrite like most adults are, to be fair. But no, Eubank Senior wasn't the one saying anything. It's Eubank Junior. Senior already believes that Connor's innocent of any wrongdoing anyway. He's like, I know that child. He wouldn't do what they're accusing him of. And so that would mean that who is providing him with these supplements? Who's providing him with these things? He only gets a pass for playing poker with Garcia if he took all his money, though. Very true. Obviously, from what we hear, he's not the greatest of poker players, whether that's true or not. I just look at all these pro boxers take something. That way I don't have to concern myself with drug cheats. Yeah, I know a lot of people who have that kind of mindset. I hear it. The debate between Eubank Senior and George Groves, Georgie Boy was holding his own against the sheriff. Yeah, that was a good. I literally watched that about 20 minutes before I came on. Good stuff. Turkey is so petty if true regarding Ade. Everyone shitted on it. TKO. He did this BS with Oscar, Canelo, and even Shakur. Yeah, I mean, Base, is there any path for Dubois to beat Usyk? I get the punches chance narrative, but Usyk something else, and we saw how the first one went. I mean, there is a path. I won't talk too much about that yet because obviously, I've got to do the picks and everything, and I like to keep those until the week of. There is a way I can see him winning that fight. It's about whether he is, but there's also some concerns, and I think maybe I'll talk about it closer to the time because obviously this maybe isn't the right time for that one. But what I will say is one of Daniel Dubois' biggest attributes is activity, and at the moment the activity isn't where it needs to be or isn't where it has been to garner his best performances. So I will leave that there. We'll talk about that closer to the time. So that's a little nugget of information for you. Alright, the debate between Eubank Senior and George Groves cracked me up. Georgie Boy was holding his own. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so he meant Junior. Cool. Right, so with that regarding obviously like the sparring stories and everything else that we were just referring to. Look, the actual press conference itself. So finally we got to hear from the undercard. And it's a bit of a shame that we didn't get the undercard from before because I knew, and I think he even said, look, ultimately I'm here to be the big loudmouth American, that's how they're going to see me. They're going to boo me in, but they're going to cheer me out. Look, Brandon Glanton was obviously MVP of the undercard press conference. He seems extremely switched on. Obviously, I know that he has. He begged for fights with Chef Clark before. He begged for fights with Isaac Chamberlain. He wanted a fight previously with Billum Smith. He obviously didn't ask for the Okoli fight because he didn't beat David Light, but he would have fought Okoli before. If you guys remember, he did come on the channel. We had a very long conversation, long interview. It was a really good one as well. And the interview, or I should say the conversation we had off camera once the interview finished was also very good. It's like one where you kind of wish it carried on, but it's a shame that obviously I didn't get given any accreditations or anything to be at the media week. And that's actually something I might as well address it now. I I put in my accreditation requests. I was hoping maybe I get fight night, but I wasn't expecting fight night. I don't think any of the smaller channels were really expecting fight night. But of all of like our group of our fight talk live and sort of everyone in and around our section like that, October Red's the only one that even got a response email about fight week. Um, I didn't get one. Danny Glover didn't get one. Maestro didn't get one. As far as I'm aware, I don't know if. I don't think G-Man actually applied because I think he knew he was going to be in Ireland. But no one that I'm aware of even got responses. Obviously, yeah, there's debate channels, the Ring, I guess PBF and Seconds Out on those guys. I'm sure that there must be a different list that some of these guys are on. But because both Matchroom and Boxer were the ones that sent out the initial, the initial correspondence, you would have at least thought to get, okay, yeah, sorry, can't make it, we're oversubscribed, blah blah blah. Not received anything, which is a little bit bad. You would like to think that you at least have the decency and the respect of the people that are covering your events and trying to bring light to it to the masses, regardless of how big or how small that they may be of a platform. But yeah, it to not even get a response, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little shady. And the Ring, the whole sort of the Ring staff and that the way all of those Ring events, the way that they're operated, are very different to the way that the Matchroom ones have been operated and the Queensbury ones and even the Boxer ones, GBM. It's almost like they're doing friendship. Everything is about like friendship connections because they didn't even put the mailing list out for everyone to be able to put their names on, to even be able to say, okay, well, I'd like to get these mailings, and then you decide, well, no, this channel's not big enough. We didn't even get that. It's literally, it became a case of, oh well, whoever gets you on the list kind of thing. So hopefully that changes. Hopefully we can get a bit more parity, but it definitely looks like they're running the whole Ring thing at the moment as a bit of a boys club. You gotta be the right face to be on the bill, but guess we'll wait and see on that one. But yeah, look, Brandon Glanton versus Chris Billam-Smith is my personal fight of the night, and now it's actually been made the first fight, so that the watch along will be starting from early, so I'm gonna have to go gym early. I was supposed to actually do a bunch of things and clear out some stuff in the house, but that's gonna all have to wait now. The watch along's gonna take precedent. I guess I'll have to do a bunch of it on the Sunday instead. But yeah, and then obviously the second fight on that undercard is obviously Chef Clark and Vidal Riley. I think that's everyone's fight, but for me, that's like my second of intrigue. Then after that one is I'm gonna, you know what, I will say the trilogy fight. As much as I don't really care for it, I do like the idea of having the conclusion between the two. So Yard Arthur 3 is sort of there, and then with Liam Smith and Aaron McKenna, with all due respect, don't get me wrong, I like Beefy Smith as a fighter. I think I think he's cool. Aaron McKenna's decent as well, but I don't have any real interest in those guys. So my level of interest for that fight is probably the lowest. I mean, to the point I forgot the fact that fight was even on the card until recently. I remembered the others, and I was like, okay, they was always on the undercard, but I didn't really remember that one. So, and the fact that one is like right in the middle, I would have preferred that to be the opening bout, and then the others, sort of take precedent. But obviously, Liam Smith is a much bigger star in the UK than the other four guys, which is fine. But yeah, I expect all of those fights I don't expect any fight to be a dud. I mean, they may not live up to our insane expectations, because a lot of the time it's very hard for things to live up to our expectations. But yeah, that's my order. So obviously the main event is the main event, so you separate that. But then um, Chris Billam Smith and Brandon Glanton is my next fight. Chev Clark versus Vidal Riley is my third. Um, then obviously you got Yard Arthur 3 to conclude the trilogy, and then Liam Smith and Aaron McKenna. So that is the order in which I will be doing basis picks when the video drops tomorrow, just so you guys know. Um, I would be very comfortable seeing Wardley dent Miller's big head. The rubbish. He talks rubbish. I mean, he's going to have to do some work to dent that head. Jerome Miller's got an incredibly large head and it's incredibly tough. Wembley, that's ambitious. Yeah, do you know what? I think it's ambitious for them to have that. But that tells me if that fight's in Wembley, actually, no, because I was remember it's not even a ring. It's not a Riyadh season thing. It's actually a Queensbury promotion. I was about to say the co-main has got to be like a banger, probably like a Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua type situation. But then I was thinking, the zone might have a budget, but they ain't gonna put like those four guys on there making insane amounts of money together. Like the pay-per-views won't cover it, won't cover all the purses. Um, the irony of Ade shitting on Turkey and not getting paid is hilarious. I guess they prefer when the shit's on the other chest. I can't. Why did I read that? Star Fox, you are bad. Like, come on, man. Like, don't get my channel shut down, please. Um, other than for the money, is Taylor versus Serrano a better trilogy than Taylor versus Cameron? Um, no, because Taylor versus Serrano is 2-0 to Taylor. The other one is 1-1. So you need a conclusive winner of that trilogy. It's more intriguing. To me, the only intrigue in this one is if they're gonna rob Katie Taylor this time, because you really feel like they wanted to rob her last time on their home broadcast platform, and now it very much seems like because they keep talking about that, it's almost like they're gonna make sure they get the right judges. It's on their platform, so no one's really gonna moan, and they're gonna make sure all the numbers make it look as if Amanda threw more, landed more, and dominated. I just think that's the only thing I'm intrigued about, is because they're trying to screw Katie. Let's not be she knows that, and she might not even care. Maybe she might take her foot off the gas and say, you know what, you've paid me a lot of money, cool, do what you want. But for me, I think the only reason this, or the only intrigue for me, is how blatant it's gonna be. Because then they'll say, oh well, how could it be a robbery? We got robbed the first two times. We're just getting justice. You can see the play. I mean, look, I like Amanda Serrano. I like Katie Taylor. Um, I do think Amanda is very strategic. I think that she is an inherently good person, but ultimately, she's not this all loving, person that she kind of portrays. There's definitely some tactics there, and the whole thing is, and the whole narrative is, I'm a little girl that's moved up, or I'm naturally smaller. You've been naturally smaller the last two fights, so why are we still hearing about it? And technically, you haven't actually fought at your weight class for the weight class you're referring to for nearly over 2 years now. So if that's the case, well, now you're not the naturally smaller girl. And if you are, well, then you should have done something to increase that. But yeah, there's a lot of narrative with Amanda, and she does do a lot of throwing stones and then hiding her hands behind her back. She does. But overall, I do like that. Oh, she is for the betterment of women's boxing as a whole, so I give her that. But yeah, she's it's all a spin job. I'm not sure what that's regarding to. Sorry, shoes on the other foot, Claire. Yeah, no, you're just trying to get me shut down. It's cool. Uh, Billum Smith always in life or death fights, and Glanton can fight and win. This is a potential fight of the year candidate. Shout out to Ron A. I'm telling you, and it's a pity that I didn't even get any accreditations, because I would have loved to speak to Brandon like again, and actually in person rather than obviously over Zoom like we done last time. He even said, no, when I get to the UK, like we need to do something. We need to hook up and and have another interview or whatever. I want, so I was looking forward to it. I might have to shout Napa and see if he can arrange something. Maybe I'll go pull up at like the hotel or something. But we'll see. I bet 10 to 50 on Conor Benn to win 24k payout. Okay. Shout out to Mr. Swamp. I hope that bet comes in, my guy. I hope that bet comes in. Then a tie for 1,000 for 15k. Okay. All right. Bold, but I respect it. Let us come back on the next live stream and let us know how that worked. If you ever said anything negative about them on social media, you're done. Well, luckily, I've never said anything negative on social media. I don't think. Um, basically, you're doing a giveaway when you get to 2k subs for 2 ringside seats to match you on Queensville at GBM show. No, maybe when I get to 20,000, we can get there, but not 2,000. That don't pay enough for that. And as you actually give your opinion, you're almost definitely on the no list. Well, I mean, look, if that's the case, that's fine, but just tell me that. That's because then I won't put in for the accreditations. And if that's the case, because I feel like I'm very sort of measured and respectful, even when I do have critique, especially for the organizations. But if that is the case, then let me revert to type. I'll talk my shit the way I used to talk my shit, if that's really what you want. I feel like I'm very professional because I speak to people all the time. But, you know, here's what it is. We'll see. We'll see what they really want. Okay. Um, you need to be biased and say nice things the way we want you to. Yeah. Actually, I'd take one ringside seat, even if it's a next gen show, just not a boxer show, please. Yeah, they need a strong undercard for that Wembley card, most definitely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. Um, uh, what's Cameron done since losing to Taylor, apart from rubbing Vaseline all over her forehead? Um, I mean, look, she hasn't had any like big fights. Queensbury didn't really get her any, but if you guys have noticed, in all of the new like MVP shots, she's in them. She hasn't been announced as an MVP signee, but she has been in a lot of the shots. She was in their Happy Easter one. She was in the promo video that they just put out the other day with I think all of the people sparring and that, and she was there. So maybe she's left Queensbury, or maybe Queensbury cut her loose. Whether because there's very different stories. Like if Queensbury let her go, that's a lot different to her deciding that she wants a release. Um, yeah, maybe because they only had two women. No, they had three women on the books anyway. There was Cameron, there's Chapman, and then there's the other girl who's like I think 108 pounder. But I can't remember her name. Young girl. Well, actually, she's not even young. She's considered. I mean, she's like 28, 29. But yeah, so they're not really heavily involved in women's boxing like that. Never really have been. And you obviously see Matchroom look to be downsizing a lot of the women as well, and only keeping. It looks like Matchroom are only choosing women now that's appeal to certain demographics, which would make sense, I suppose. You got Sky Nicholson for the Australian market. You've got Elif Turin for the sort of that Turkish crowd, maybe Turkey and Albania, sort of that area. Because I guess you would assume that maybe she will bring in sort of that crowd to them. Obviously, Shannon Ryan, they've still got under contract. Um, what's her name? Terry Harper. She's still there, although her next fight is on a GBM Sports card instead. Sandy Ryan, I mean, her last two fights have been outsourced, but she is still technically a part of the team, I suppose. And then obviously Katie Taylor, who has had her last, I think, two or three fights now away from the zone and Matchroom. Two of them are obviously going to be on Netflix. So I don't really know. Obviously, Alicia is gone, and Ellie's gone, and there's a bunch of other girls that are no longer there. So I don't really know what's going on. Beatrice, I guess maybe for the Brazilian market, still around, but when they used to be the premier women's. Although here's the issue though, if they do end up having a quote unquote issue with Turkey and that relationship sours, well, Matchroom sort of kind of built their model on having a lot of the women being on the undercards and having really good traction for the women's fights. If you ain't got no more women on your books, that's going to be a bit of an issue because some of them other stars, there's only so many of these young boys that you can put out, on like the Viziolis and the Buttigieeds and sort of them man there. But that's their decision. We'll see how that all pans out. Hopefully for the best. I heard your Amanda is so disingenuous. I see through it. When Sky lost the other month, I see when with Shields at times too. Even though I know you're not the biggest. No, I'm not the biggest Shields fan. However, what I will say, and I will always I try to be as no, I try to be fair. It's hard to be fair with Clarissa Shields because she doesn't make it easy for you to be objective, in my opinion. But she's very much you either love her or you hate her. While I don't hate her, I don't have time for her. But I do agree with her when she does mention some of the things about Amanda, essentially throwing stones and then hiding her hands. I agree. Amanda does do that at times. But that also doesn't then change the fact that you are also very, very loudmouthed and very, I won't say disingenuous. Maybe there's a bit of disingenuity in there, but Clarissa doesn't help herself. She does say things that put her back and take her, and make it very hard to then be on her side for other things. I mean, Alicia Baumgartner said it the other day. People want to talk about being kumbaya and protecting black women, but this was the same Clarissa Shields that went on live disrespecting us women that are lighter skinned than her. So at the end of the day, it's she said, don't just come for the narrative when it suits you. So I get it. But yeah, on the Amanda side, don't get me wrong. The whole the I just look, be honest. Look, you don't have to love every single woman to want the women's division to be, to be thriving and jumping. And you even saw it in the press conference. That she wanted to say more to Katie, but she's staying in character. They got to points where she almost let the character slip because you heard it when I mean, I respect you, Katie, but the world saw what they saw. She really wanted to say more. It's just be honest. You can support all of these women in the sense that you want them all to do well. That doesn't mean that ultimately you have to act like, oh, I love all the women in the game. No, you don't. You can't love all these people that you're in competition with. That's not how competition works. You can respect all of them, cool, but it's there is some fakeness there. It's small amount, but I can tolerate. The only thing is I can tolerate her more than I can tolerate Clarissa. So, spot on about Serrano. Yeah, I agree with that. She takes her digs here and there, and you know what? Take your digs, but own it. Don't act like you're not taking. Say it. Okay, cool. Because ultimately, Shields has come for you, so it's okay for you to retaliate. That's not a problem. Just be honest. All the fake humble humility stuff. Forget it. Chev Clark and Glanton Wagwan with them, man. Some tension. Yeah, I mean, because Brandon wanted to fight Chev and the fight didn't happen, so he's out there saying, "Well, yo, you can get it after Billam Smith if you want." Thing I like Brandon. He's on smoke. that doesn't necessarily mean he's gonna win on the weekend, but he's on smoke. He's Mr. Anywhere, anytime. He said it on the thing, like, how can I not love boxing? I legally get to kill people if I want to. I get to hurt people for a living and make money. Like, so he said, based on my life and how things kind of played out, this is a godsend for me. So base holler for sparring. Now you're back. Okay, cool. All right. The next, where are we? All right. I guarantee you, by the end of May, our sparring session is happening. By the end of May, you guys have all heard it here. You can clip this up. We're gonna sort this one out. We just need to figure out a time when I'm available. Obviously, I'm a busy guy, um, very very busy, and we're gonna do it. I'll do it with my one good shoulder, but we will make it work. Um, Looks like Better Beav has been eating nicely recently. Even Better Beav is not immune from body shaming. Oh, I haven't even seen that. I'm gonna have to check that. Um, Ring specifically, they've even not let in mainstream head writers of broadsheet papers at the door for not being positive. And wow, jeez, okay. Ade was also way more critical about the boxing organizations, and he made it to the top. I'm sure you get your accreditation sooner or later. Well, look, ultimately, like the whole ring stuff, that's just one factor in it. And if I can't get on those, I mean, I'll still get Matchroom, I'll still get Queensbury, I'll still get Boxer. Um, and if I don't get any of them, well, cool. We'll either do watch-alongs or I'll just talk about them on here like I usually do. Remember, you guys know this channel is not predicated on access to boxers, to promoters, and whatnot, or to the shows. That's just the shows, and that's just a perk. But even that, as much as I love like the going to the shows and stuff, really and truly, when it's a show that's outside of London, like don't get me wrong, Nottingham and Birmingham, I like going to those because I get it gives me a reason to go to the cities. But I pay and I spend a lot of money on those trips. I don't recoup any of that. When it's the London shows and stuff, the O2s, the York Halls, and all of that, that's fine because that's some petrol in the car and maybe some parking. Cool. But yeah, all the others, that just ends up being like weekends that cost a lot of money. So if I don't get them, some shows will be good enough where I will actually buy tickets to go if it's a good enough show. I'm not above that, you know. Um, what do you make of MVP's growing stable of fighters? I enjoy it and I support it. The only thing that I will say though, and this is what we need to be careful of when it comes, because we're talking about MVP and they've signed up all of these women and stuff. But if you notice, they don't have a lot of dates. Like yes, we've got this big Netflix show now, right? The platform, but they did one show on Netflix last year, which was Paul versus Tyson. Obviously, you know why Netflix won that. They've now managed to parlay this one into Netflix as well, because I guess they're like, oh well, we like that second fight. So many people watched it. Maybe they'll watch the trilogy and whatever. But they don't have dates on Netflix like that. Jake Paul's next fight himself is on DAZN. So from they don't have that schedule, the only thing I want to make sure is that these women aren't gonna all be on like MVP, but then either getting sublet out to other channels, or they then don't have a robust enough schedule and they're only fighting once a year, or like maybe twice if they're lucky. Like if you've got enough of an infrastructure where you can have these people, even like the H2O Silves and the Lucas Bardis and them, and they're all actually fighting like 2, 3, and 4 times a year, and being able to, or having that ability to fight that much, then cool. But outside of that is where I'm saying let's be careful. Um, no, Ramla, she's signed with MVP. They signed her. They announced that signing about a month ago now, I think. Yeah, she was one of the first signings that they announced from their new swathe of people with Dina Thorsland, Elizabeth Ashoba. and what's her name? Is it Kate? I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she's a young up and comer who I'm actually going to be doing a. I'll probably add her to the next Fem Files video that I do. So um, Shannon Ryan, Sandy Ryan, my two favorite female fighters. Yeah, shout out to Shannon. She's fighting in a couple of weeks on the undercard um, for Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen too. I wasn't gonna bother with the card, but I might. I've put in. I think I put in the accreditation only because I haven't spoken to Shannon in a little while. I want to see if I get a hold of her, get her back on the channel. Seeing as the last interview we didn't actually upload properly. Um, Eddie Hearn stated he felt like slapping Eubank for interjecting him in the press conference. Do you reckon he would actually try it? How capable is with his hands? I want to see him get stuck in. Well, no, Eddie. Look, he had a few. Eddie had some amateur fights. He's got some boxing training. He's just not a professional. Um, would I mean maybe if he could sneak a punch and then like just grapple with Chris, he might have a chance. But you have to also remember Nappa's around, and Eddie ain't trying to mess with Nappa. And then the rest of the security detail that will be around also. So yeah, and also Chris is a professional, like a full-time professional. So maybe you don't want to risk that in its totality. Caroline versus Alicia looks like it could be heating up, and all because Caroline defended Shields. Well, yeah, I mean, technically, you think of it, Caroline is the shield for Shields because Shields can't get down to any sensible weight. So of course Alicia would quite happily, because I think it was Clarissa that said, "Yeah, well, talk to Caroline, isn't it? Like you two's closer weights, ain't you?" And it just makes sense. But look, I'm not gonna. It's hard for me to comment on those situations. You guys know Caroline's my Capricorn sister. Love Caroline, but you guys know how I feel about Alicia, and also you know how I feel about Beatrice. So I'm staying neutral. I'm not picking sides. I will play devil's advocate with all of that situation, and may the best woman come out on top of that little trifecta as and when it happens. But I personally, just from my point of view, and I understand it's just mine, I would rather not see them fight any any variation, because I know Alicia said that she'd take Caroline, she'd take Beatrice as well. She said that the other day. I don't want to see any of those fights. Just from a point of view that I won't be happy watching it. That's the only reason why. Um, Even her fans call people racist when they critique her, like they did recently to Ring IQ when he had the image of her with the big mouth because she has a loud mouth. Yeah. The thing is, I understand. Look, the image thing, I didn't look at it in any sort of racial way. Again, I know the person that made, and I was actually going to do a video about it, but then I thought there's no point. Um, in isolation, I can understand how someone, especially from certain demographics in the US, can get triggered by it. But when you know, number one, the person who made it, and then also you understand that it's literally a view and a representation of that one person, it becomes different. And then when you see it, this one person has made caricatures of multiple different people. Devin Haney's been had the caricature made of him. Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, Janny Beck, David Benavides, um, Floyd Schofield Sr., Oscar De La Hoya, Ryan Garcia. Like there is so many people. Like if you're picking that one out, you're intentionally trying to find a problem where there isn't one, because the person hasn't come on there and said, "Oh, this is a representation of all black women or all dark-skinned black women." No, they've said this is the representation of this woman, this one particular woman. And it's also, if you bear in mind, he's also put up very flattering pictures of Clarissa Shields before. So it can't be about trying to vilify women, or because it has been other dark skinned black women that he's put on his thumbnails and they have been normal or they've been enhanced, or they look gorgeous. So it can't be about this person trying to denigrate and make racial things. But again, that's a whole nother story. It's not really something I want to get into here now. Shout out to Saint, £5 super chat. Thank you very much, man. Bless up, base, peace and prosperity. Peace and prosperity to you. Thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. Make sure you pull up to the watch along on Saturday, even if you can't stick around. Base a Bournemouth fan after Man United fell off. No. This ain't no Bournemouth top. It's just a standard Umbro top I've had for years. It's one that I normally wear to the gym, but I wore it underneath my work clothes today. Yeah, just a couple of cheap tops for the gym. That's all it is, man. But yeah, United are, they are sort of they're breaking spirits around it. Although, look, going off topic really quickly, and I know probably we've gone for longer than maybe we was expecting to. I'm going to go for another 15 minutes or so because I'm enjoying myself. Watching the live watch along for Man United versus Lyon the other day on United View, that was must see TV. I even said to KG before we done on Monday Night Smoke, I was in. As soon as I saw the score, and then I watched the highlights because I didn't get to see the match on the actual day. I was out, but I saw the highlights, and then I saw how it turned out, and then it ended up being 4-2 down. I said, I've got to go to United View. So I went, and I literally just forwarded to every moment just before a goal went in from United, 2-0, then 2-2, then the 4-2. I just had to see how these men reacted. 4, and then like the 3-4, the 4-4, and then the 5-4. It was must-see television, and KG whipping off his top, looking like Mark Henry, all of that stuff. That was all insane. It was crazy. Somebody please leak the Base versus Tony sparring footage, and don't speed up Tony's highlights like they did for Mike Tyson. Speaking of, I actually need to find my gloves. I got some 14-ounce gloves down, fresh, but I can't remember where I put them. I got some 14s, I got some 12s, I got some 14s, and I think I got some 16s as well. If Tony wants me to put on the 18-ounce gloves, though, that's fine. I'll do that because Tony will want to do it without a head guard. He wants to show the head movement. He wants to show he can eat the body shots. He might have to sort of take the 14-ounce gloves in the ring. Base, you're on that no fight is below praise and no fighter is above criticism kind of to a degree. Yeah, like, look, no one look, I find, don't get me wrong, I find it very hard to praise people that I don't like, but objectively I can be objective. Like, I can, if there is something objective there to praise, I will do it. But I also don't spend much of my time watching, or, well, if I don't like them, then I won't watch them outside of the ring. I'll just watch them in the ring. Didn't MVP used to have slots with his own? Yeah, they had a couple. I mean, they might still have a few, but again, when they started doing the Netflix thing, I don't know how their whole deal works. But they had a similar amount of slots as the OTX guys did. But now I don't know how many. Like, for instance, the Jake Paul and the junior fight that's taking place in June, that's being run by Golden Boy. I think it's going to be like a Golden Boy fighters pretty much all on the undercard. Maybe one MVP fighter, and then Jake Paul. So the Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight. So yeah, I don't know how it's working. Apparently Pac-Man is fighting Barrios. Yeah, that won't happen. I know I've seen the reports. It's not taking place. Pac-Man has got. He said he wouldn't even entertain fighting until he's finished with his current commitments in government. And as far as I'm aware, those ain't due to be finished until, I think it's September, if I'm correct. Who's the real money behind MVP? Is it really Jake Paul? Because he seems just like the face of it. Well, no, I mean, Jake and Nikisa. The thing is, MVP themselves. Remember, it's a promotional company. Their money comes from their broadcast situations. I mean, obviously, Jake's got his own money from outside of there, but he gets paid by broadcasters. So it's not like, oh, there's like Len Blavatnovic, no, so Len Blavatnik from like the Zone that owns the platform. Like they go and they get, uh, you know, matching rights or finance deals through like the Netflix or through the Zone, and they do the shows, and then they generate the interest through the social media, and then they make the money on the shows, and then they take a percentage. But that's how it works. So there isn't any big money man behind it, I don't believe. Um, the devil doesn't need an advocate. Pick a side. I refuse to pick sides when it comes to those three, unless they're fighting other people. Carl, I won't. Also, be careful sparring Tony base. The rumors are saying the reason Tony is abroad so much is because he's running the Dubois Brazilian training camps. Well, I've, yeah, true. Wonder what happened to Leonard Ellaby. He stopped being useful. That's basically what happened to him. I mean, he's still in and around, but you don't hear from him because he's not needed. Why is Ben Shalom allowing Eddie Hearn to bad him up? He needs to clap. Well, he does try to clap back. It's just that the clapbacks, they're good in the moment, and then he kind of gets savaged for it afterwards. So, um, but no, Ben's cool. Ben's a cool guy. Keith Thurman with the RoboCop. Oh yeah, in terms of the caricatures, yeah. Don't you start, you dirty gunner. Just be happy I still love you after seeing those pictures. Ugh. Veritas. No, Ring IQ ain't racist, but he definitely very wrong being so dickheaded about the shitstorm it would cause. The moment I saw the image, I knew it was coming. He asked for it. Well, look, that in itself, that's subjective. He probably, I guess, again, because some people, a bit like me, I don't look at one person and then attribute that to an entire demographic of people, but there are people that are like that. Maybe how he was looking at it was that I'm talking about her. So when everyone's talking about racial, he's like, what are you talking about? I'm talking about one person, and she's a loudmouth. Like, let's stay on focus here. Let's stay on topic. But I guess what the main thing is ultimately when you put something out there, you don't get to control how people respond, and you also don't get to control who sees it. Like once it's out in the world, it's out in the world, and then there will be people who are out there on a different agenda, or people that see the world differently to other people, and insane people, and then they make own and they change narratives and Chinese whispers, if that's even allowed to be called anymore. I don't know. And then that's what becomes the next thing. All of a sudden, you start, things get misconstrued and they get, appropriated in the wrong ways. So, Tony, Karma supports Arsenal just like you. I don't know why she would do that to herself, but such is life. Um, I wish Ben and Frank Smith had a back and forth at the presser. Yeah, that would be good work. That would be interesting. Yeah, Karma, it looks like he got a new supporter now. Now Tony knows that he supports same team as him. Um, all right, we've got another 5-10 minutes to go. Frank really don't like Ben. No, he does not. Um, yeah, he really don't like him. But them's the breaks. Just gotta grin and bear it, as they say. I'm trying to think who dislikes him. I think Frank Smith actually dislikes him a lot more than Frank Warren does. I think Frank Warren just thinks he's a bit of a bellend, but Frank Smith really has no time for him. does not like Ben at all. Good old Arsenal. We're proud to say that name. Now, this is how you say the name, Karma. That's how it's spelled. That's how it's pronounced. Um, I also believe it wasn't Ring IQ's intention, but should we pretend history doesn't exist? That people were depicted exactly like that to dehumanize them. That history still. Yeah, look, I get it. Veritas. Don't get me wrong. The thing is, I understand. I didn't initially, obviously, when I've initially looked at the actual image, the first thing I thought of wasn't that historical context in, like, the tabloids and Jim Crow and all that. That wasn't what I thought. I initially just thought of her having a bit, and I just found it funny. Obviously, yes. Then you kind of see other people get it, and I was like, okay, I get it, I understand, but I think it's also about context because yes, historical context can be a thing, but ultimately the context is around that picture and that person in particular. Like, sometimes it's like when people try to use something that's going on in a world issue and try to conflate that into a very specific argument just because there's some similarities there. Like, they're not the same thing. Um, and I also then get to a point where I say, look, first and foremost, I am all about, and okay, I guess with this we're going to end it on this kind of conversation right now. But we're an hour and a half in. Whoever's here is here. I am all about my black people, protecting black women, and all of that, protecting black men, like, and having, being able to have a voice, being heard, and feeling like you are, not a second and third class citizen. And I'm all about that, but I don't believe that just because I protect black women, or so to speak, that means that a black woman is then beyond reproach. Like, ultimately, that caricature was of that one person. Like, if there was like if you had like two, three, four, five, or like a big page full of these different people, and it was all, all different shades and all different, and there was like just some mad funky feature of everyone. Okay, cool. Now we know that you're being very specific to a demographic. But from I've seen him do caricatures of so many different people from different places, I know that's why I didn't initially go to a racial thing in my head, because I'm like, I know the person who's done this. And again, they was very specific. Even in the title, Clarissa shouts, or goes off on MVP or whatever. So that's how I'm looking at it. I'm looking very singular, that you are taking the piss of this one person. Now, if someone said that's a very distasteful image of Clarissa, okay, cool, I'll agree. I'll say that it is distasteful. It's disrespectful. It's out of order, as for her. But then if they go, oh, that was a racist picture, or that, oh, that's racist, you shouldn't have done, or like, how, or whatever, that's where I disagree. I'm like, no, that's not racist. If at worst it's disrespectful, at worst it's inappropriate, or at worst it's offensive. Outside of that, if you can't make a joke about someone, or I guess insult someone, because by insulting them you're insulting everyone that looks like them, that doesn't really sit well with me, and that's not the case. Like I said, I feel like it's just conflating two separate situations into one, which doesn't need to be done. But shout out, Rich, Ad Astra. All right, casual question: how good is Thunderbolts? So people are saying it's a very good film, very, very good film, and I am very privileged that I was able to go to the European premiere, which is technically the world premiere, because it was the very first time the film's actually been seen in its entirety. Um, it was a very great experience, and I look forward to going to more Marvel premieres in the future. But yeah, Thunderbolts, good film, very good film. I'm not going to say anything further than that. Um, and there's two post credit scenes. That's all you get. Frank Warren dislikes Eubank Jr. more. Yep, definitely. Karma calling me a hater for the Arsenal thing. Well, that's how it's spelled, isn't it? Tell me I'm lying. Star Fox says, "Preach, Dr. Umar base." Yeah, I'm far from Umar, but Shields, Blast, Baumgardner. Yeah, maybe. But either way, it was specific to that. So, um, Veritas, exactly. I'm with you on that. Okay. Anyone seen Sinners yet? Yeah, I saw that last week. Big film. It's got some very interesting iconography in it as well. I won't talk about it, but it's yeah, definitely a dope film. If you haven't watched Sinners, definitely watch it. Um, got some strange parts where you're like, don't really know how I feel about that, but it's a good film. Right, so we're getting ready to close off. So you guys know the deal. We got until the end of this music, and then we're calling it a night. So get the rest of your comments in, and I think I'm going to do a stream at some point where I just put the link out and get people to come on and chat with me. Karma, I would love you to come on, have your say. Hydra Selassie, Star Fox, if you wanna expose the voice on on the mains, definitely. Skyliner, definitely Tony. You definitely need to pull up. We might even have to do an impromptu breakdown show or something on Tuesday or, or something next week. Actually, I know Arsenal are playing in it, so maybe that won't work. Um, my last comment was unfair. You never asked for donations or building a school. 100% appreciate it. Uh, Okay, looks like the comments are slowing down. Right, so if you are watching on YouTube, no, if you're watching on X, please click the link in the top for the YouTube link. Just jump on and subscribe to the channel. Maybe just give it a view through there if you can. We appreciate that. Also, to just to confirm, the content is going to be coming out. We're doing the watch along on Saturday. We got weekend wrap on Sunday. Fight Talk Live will also be Sunday. Tuesday we will have another casual stream. On Wednesday we will have a casual stream meets base talks, and we will be talking with the lovely yet vicious baby-faced assassin known as Guadalupe Lupita Medina. I will put links, and you guys can all see. I'll put the links to all of her stuff in those upcoming videos. She is a very, very talented young fighter. She reminds me a little bit of a cross between like a Shannon Ryan and, well, I'd say Shannon Ryan and Beatrice Ferreira, but also if any of you know Roseanne Sawyer Cox, she has a bit of Roseanne spitefulness in her. Obviously, Roseanne being a heavyweight. But yeah, so I look forward to that. She's from LA. I think she's 8-0 at the moment, 9-0. But I've been keeping an eye on her for the last 2 years, and I've been trying to make contact for the last 2 years. Finally managed to get a hold of her, and she's coming on next week. So I want to introduce her to you guys. I want you guys to follow the journey, because it will be a special one. Man says, good luck, PSG. Carver says, let me know and I will be there. You will definitely be in attendance. Right, with that being said, thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I will catch you in the next one. Till then, peace. Maybe I'ma make it, maybe I'm not. In time we'll see. But who better than me? I don't care if you agree. I ain't saying that I'm better than anyone. But who better than me?